Silence is a true friend who never betrays. They thought your silence was nothing but quiet, but it wasn't. It was a message, louder than any word you could have spoken. It was your final act of strength. And here's the cold truth, my friends. They never expected you to actually stop caring. They thought you'd always orbit around them like a loyal moon. But now, the gravity has shifted. You've stopped reaching out, stopped checking in, stopped giving them that steady stream of attention they used to take for granted. And now? Now they're unraveling in slow motion. Before we dive in, do me a quick favor. Press that like button and hit subscribe if you're ready to step fully into your power, into your peace, and into the next chapter of your life. Because this one, folks, it's going to wake something up in you. Hey, folks, imagine this. You're the fireplace in a freezing cabin. All winter long, they sat near you, soaked in your warmth, took off their coat and got comfortable. But they never threw in a single log, never tended the flame, just sat there, assuming you'd keep burning. And then one day, you stopped. No anger, no announcement, just embers, just silence. And suddenly, the cold crept in. That's what happens when someone loses your attention. Not because you're cruel, but because you're finally wise. You're done feeding what drains you, and now they're the ones freezing in the quiet they created. See, people don't really understand the power of presence. They get used to it. They forget it's a choice. They treat your consistency like an obligation, and then the moment you stop, they call it an ego trip. But let me tell you, folks, pulling your attention back isn't arrogance. It's alignment. You're not punishing them. You're protecting yourself. As Marcus Aurelius said, just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. That's what this is. You're finally doing the right thing. For you. And now? Oh, now the obsession begins, but not in fireworks and drama. It starts with a whisper. It starts with them scrolling through your old messages at 2 a.m., trying to decode your last words like they're some ancient prophecy, watching your stories with the volume off, hoping for some hint you still care. It's funny, isn't it? When you were present, they overlooked you, but now that you're silent, your absence is screaming in their ears. That's what they never saw coming. They didn't expect you to walk away, not really. They expected you to flinch, to fold, to come back with a just checking in. But you didn't. You chose silence, the kind that heals. You chose stillness, the kind that grows. And now they're left chasing shadows, yours. This isn't just about losing someone. It's about losing the only person who gave peace without performance. And you're not bitter. You're building, quietly, daily, brick by brick. Your growth isn't on display, but it's happening. In the gym, in your craft, in your spirit, in your mindset. You're not stalking their profile. You're focused on your purpose. That's why they're obsessed. Not because you're playing games, but because you stopped playing at all. So stay with me, because in this video, we're diving into the stages of their obsession after losing your attention. Not to brag, not to bait, but to break the lie that silence means defeat. It doesn't. It means evolution. You've got to remember this, my friends. When you value yourself enough to go quiet, you don't become invisible, you become unforgettable, and that's the kind of power they never prepared for. Type this in the comments if you're walking in that truth today. Silence is strength. Let the world know. Let them know. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me. It's about to get powerful. Number 1. The sudden void. You don't realize the value of peace until the person who brought it walks away. This is where it starts. Not with a bang, not with drama, but with silence. A silence that doesn't just fill the room, it changes it. Because when you pulled your attention back, it wasn't just a missing text or a missed call. It was the sudden removal of emotional gravity. You were the anchor, and now the ship is drifting, and they don't even know where the shore went. Imagine a lighthouse that was always there, every night casting its beam steady and dependable. They never looked twice at it. It was just there. Until one night, it wasn't. Now every wave feels more dangerous. Every shadow feels longer. And they start to realize you were the calm in the chaos. At first, they brush it off. They're probably just busy. They'll be back. That's the lie they tell themselves. Because to admit otherwise, to admit that maybe you're actually done, that would mean facing a truth they're not ready for, that they pushed too far, that they mistook your patience for permanence, that the one who was always there won't be this time. And that's when the fear creeps in. They open their phone and expect to see your name. Nothing. They post something, hoping you'll react. Silence. They talk to mutual friends, fishing for signs. But you're off the radar, like a ghost who left without slamming the door. That's what gets them. It's not loud. It's not messy. It's final. See, they never thought you'd pull back. Not really. You were the consistent one, the steady one, the one who didn't flinch. They believed they had unlimited access to your energy, and now they're realizing you were giving from a place of depth, not need. Your attention wasn't a symptom of weakness, it was a gift, and they squandered it. It's funny how human psychology works. We rarely notice warmth when it's always there, but the moment it's gone, we can't stop shivering. That's the stage they're in now. Every moment without you feels unfamiliar. Not because they love you, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but because they were used to you. Used to the emotional safety you brought. The quiet reassurance, the availability, the peace. And now that peace has become a void, and that void is loud. Epictetus once said, "People are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them. Right now, their view of your absence is warping. It's becoming a question, a fear, a regret. They're asking themselves things they never did before. Why did you stop talking? Did you meet someone else? Did they push you too far? Did you finally outgrow them?" But here's what hits hardest. Deep down, they know. They know you didn't vanish out of pettiness. You disappeared because you finally realized your worth was being drained by someone who only noticed you when you went missing. That's what changes everything. Because this isn't just about missing a person. It's about realizing you were the steady hand in the storm, and they lost it. They won't admit it, not yet. They'll still post, still smile, still act like everything's great. But every quiet moment, every night when their phone doesn't buzz with your name, that silence will scream. That absence will echo. That energy you used to give so freely will start to feel like something sacred they never knew they needed until it was gone. And you're not bitter, you're not waiting, you're not peeking back to see if they've noticed. Because that's not who you are anymore. You're not defined by their recognition. You're defined by your alignment. You didn't walk away to hurt them. You walked away to find yourself. That's power. That's clarity. That's Stoicism in action. So let me ask you, my friends, are you living for validation or living in your values? Are you trying to be noticed or grounded in your own peace? Because when you truly walk in your worth, you don't have to raise your voice. Your silence does all the talking. Drop this in the comments if you feel this truth. My silence speaks. Let the world know. Show them. Show yourself. And stay with me, Because what comes next? That's when obsession starts turning into chaos. Number 2, the micro-stalking begins. He who does not answer with words often speaks loudest through his absence. At this stage, they haven't said a word. Not yet. But don't be fooled. They're watching everything. Quietly, constantly, carefully. They scroll your profile not out of hate, but curiosity. Obsession doesn't start with a grand gesture. It starts with checking your story at 2 a.m. with the screen dimmed, watching with the volume off, studying your smile like it holds a secret. Because now that you're gone, your silence has become the loudest thing in their life. It begins subtly. A peek at your last online timestamp, a glance to see if you've unfollowed them, a scroll through your tagged photos, a long pause on that one post where you looked a little too at peace, a little too good, a little too unbothered. And suddenly, questions start to race through their mind like a stampede they can't control. Are you happier now? Who's that person in the background? Why do you look so calm? Are you missing me at all? Or am I already a memory? That's the fear. It's not that you left. It's that you might not be hurting, that you might not even be thinking about them, that you might actually be better off without them, because nothing stings quite like realizing the person you thought needed you never did. See, folks, when you were consistent, they called you predictable. When you were attentive, they said you were too available. But now, in your absence, they've developed a phantom itch. They reach for your energy in the dark, only to realize it's gone. And that's what begins to break them. Not because they lost someone to obsession, but because they lost someone who was stable. You were their emotional compass, whether they admitted it or not. Your check-ins, your presence, your grounding energy, it kept their world spinning smoothly. And now, without your orbit, the axis tilts. Things start to feel off. Conversations feel empty. Their new followers feel like noise, not connection. And your silence, it feels personal. This is where the stalking ramps up, but with stealth. They won't message you directly, not yet. That would expose the truth, that they miss you, that they're affected. So instead, they lurk, they scroll, they click, they tap your profile 5, 6, 7 times a day, looking for something, anything that gives them hope or closure. Either will do. But here's the part they didn't prepare for. You're not performing. You're not posting cryptic quotes or sad songs. You're not throwing out bait. You're just living, still, grounded, calm. You've stopped reacting, and in doing so, you've become a mirror. Your peace now reflects their chaos. Your detachment exposes their dependency. They're looking into your life, but all they see is someone who finally let go. Seneca once said, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." And that's exactly where they're trapped. They're stuck in that uncertain space of expecting you to return. But every silent day from you becomes a reminder. This isn't a pause, it's a shift. You're not coming back. You've moved forward. And what makes it unbearable for them? You didn't replace them with noise. You replaced them with purpose. You're reading more, training more, healing, growing. You're pouring into your craft, into your solitude, into your life. While they're stalking screens, you're building a future. And that contrast, it burns. It's a strange irony. They're giving you more mental real estate now that you're gone than they ever did when you were present. When you gave freely, they underestimated it. But now that you've gone silent, they've begun to realize your presence wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual. It anchored them in a way no social media post, no rebound, no motivational quote can replicate. But remember this, my friends, You don't rise by being seen. You rise by being centered. You don't heal by being loud. You heal by being intentional. You didn't choose silence to manipulate them. You chose it because you finally value your peace over their performance. So if you feel this shift in your soul, if you've walked away and now find yourself being watched in silence, say this with me. Type it in the comments. I choose stillness. Because stillness is power. Stillness is presence. Stillness is freedom. And don't go anywhere. Because the next stage, that's when memory turns into obsession, and it only gets deeper. Number 3, the obsessive replaying of memories. The mind, once haunted by silence, will replay the past louder than the present. They thought they were strong, thought they could handle the distance, thought your absence wouldn't shake them, but now they can't stop thinking, and not in a healthy, reflective kind of way. No, this is the kind of thinking that circles back on itself, the kind that repeats, the kind that haunts. Because when you go silent, their mind doesn't find peace. It finds loops, obsessive, endless, echoing loops. It begins when they least expect it. Maybe it's during a slow moment at work, or while they're lying awake at night staring at the ceiling. Suddenly, a flash of your laughter slips into their mind. A phrase you used to say. The way you looked at them during that one silent car ride where you didn't speak much, but everything felt understood. They start rewinding, not because they want to, but because they can't help it. That's what your absence has done. You've triggered a mental spiral they never anticipated. Now they're rereading old conversations, zooming in on photos where you're smiling together, studying timestamps, trying to decode the exact moment where things started to shift. Was it that joke they didn't laugh at? That last message that seemed shorter than usual? Did I miss a sign? The irony? They missed all the signs when you were still right there. You see, folks, most people don't lose someone all at once. They lose them in pieces. First, the energy dims, then the presence fades, then one day, silence. And that's when the weight hits. Not because you did something shocking, but because they didn't realize how much you mattered until you were no longer accessible, until the doorway they always assumed would be open, quietly closed. This is the point where they start romanticizing everything. Even the smallest things now feel golden. That random Tuesday afternoon where you laughed at something dumb. That time you brought their favorite snack without them asking. The way you used to say their name when you were half asleep. All those little moments that they once called just normal now feel like treasures. Not because they finally matured, but because you're gone. It's a strange kind of panic, isn't it? The kind where you don't even know what you're looking for, but you keep searching anyway. Searching through memories, through screenshots, through old playlists. They start revisiting places in their mind, hoping to catch a glimpse of something they missed, something that could explain why you walked away. But here's the real sting. It wasn't a single moment. It wasn't one big event. It was accumulation. You gave. They shrugged. You cared. They drifted. You showed up. They hesitated. And eventually, you got quiet, not to hurt them, but to heal yourself. Marcus Aurelius said, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." And that's exactly what happened to you. You began to live, to walk away from emotional breadcrumbs and start building something solid within yourself. That's why they can't stop thinking, because they know the version of you they once knew. They will never meet that version again. And here's what's wild. While they're lost in mental rewind, you're moving forward. You're not perfect. You've had your moments. But you didn't let your pain become your prison. You made it your platform. You made it your pivot. And the gap between who you were then and who you are now, that's what's starting to terrify them. Because they're realizing something deeper than just missing you. They're realizing they never really saw you until you weren't available anymore. And now, even if you did return, they know deep down you're not the same. You're calmer, sharper, focused. You've taken the pain and turned it into presence, turned the silence into substance. Let me ask you, my friends, have you ever noticed that the same people who took you for granted are the ones who remember you the most when you're gone? That's no accident. That's the echo of a presence that was real, grounded, and rare. So don't second-guess yourself. Don't question the silence you chose, because that very silence is now the loudest thing in their mind, not because you were dramatic, but because you were undeniably real. And if you feel that truth, if you've watched someone obsess over the memory of who you were while you rise into who you are, type this in the comments: I moved forward. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you, and stay with me. Because what comes next? That's when they start performing for your attention, but you're already gone. Number 4, the performative glow-up. Not all smiles are healing. Some are just desperate masks for the silence underneath. Now that your presence is gone, they do something predictable, something loud, something staged. Suddenly, their online world becomes a performance. The captions, empowered. The selfies, flawless. The energy, unmatched, or so it appears. But don't let it fool you, my friends. This isn't evolution, it's emotional theater. Because when people lose the one who brought them calm, they try to look louder than ever, hoping you're still watching. Scroll through their profile and you'll see it. A carefully crafted gallery of "look how happy I am without you." Rooftop dinners with people they barely know. New hobbies. Filtered smiles. Songs in the background that hit a little too close to things you used to say. It's not a glow-up. It's bait. Designed not for themselves, but for you. Because deep down, they're not posting to celebrate life. They're posting to see if they still live in your mind. You see, when you were around, they didn't need to try this hard. Your presence was their spotlight. Your consistency was their comfort. But now, with your silence pressing against their self-worth like a mirror, they feel the pressure to prove they're winning without you. So they post louder, smile bigger, pose longer, and yet something still feels off. Because true peace doesn't need an audience. Here's what they don't realize. You're not watching. Not in the way they hope. You're not studying their stories. You're not decoding their captions. You're not sitting in the shadows hoping for a sign. Why? Because you're present in your own life now. You're building, quietly, stoically, away from the spotlight and into your power. And that confuses them. Back then, a single story from them would have had you second-guessing. A lyric in a caption. You'd be decoding it all night. But now, you've unplugged. Not because you're cold, because you're clear, and that's what breaks them. Your silence isn't weakness, it's restraint. It's you saying, I don't need to clap back. I've simply moved forward. Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things which lie beyond our control. And what is more out of your control than someone else's attempt to perform healing while crumbling inside? Now, you don't flinch at their beach trips, their brunches, or their new soul tribe. You don't scroll to compare. You don't question your decision, because your glow-up didn't need filters. It happened in silence, in discipline, in late nights where you didn't post a thing because you were busy becoming something real. Meanwhile, they're burning energy trying to be seen, hoping you'll slip up and engage, hoping you'll text something, like something, feel something, anything, because silence from someone they used to emotionally control. That's not just unfamiliar. It's terrifying. So they try to provoke curiosity. Some people lost me when I was worth keeping. Healing never looked this good. Unbothered energy only. But behind the captions is a question they can't post. Why haven't they come back? Why haven't they reacted? Did I really lose them for good? That's when it hits them. You're not playing the game anymore. You've left the emotional casino. You're not gambling with your attention. You're investing it wisely in your goals, your craft, your soul. They're performing for someone who's not even in the audience anymore. And that realization, it stings more than any breakup ever could, because they thought they'd always have access to you, that even if you went quiet, you'd still be tuned in, still watching, still halfway emotionally available. But this time, you didn't just walk away, you unplugged the power source, and their performance has nowhere to land. So now they're dancing in the spotlight they built for you, while you've already left the stage. Let me ask you this, my friends. Have you ever felt that peace? That deep, powerful calm that comes when you no longer need to respond? You just live. If you have, then you know what real healing looks like. It's not loud, it's not curated, it's not for show, it's for you. And if you feel that truth today, type it in the comments. Peace doesn't perform. Say it loud, show them, show yourself, show the world around you. And stay with me, because what comes next? That's when they stop pretending and start realizing they can't replace you, not with noise, not with faces, not with filters. Number 5, the quiet comparison phase. You don't notice the depth of still water until you try swimming in the shallow. Now the mask starts to slip, slowly. Not in public, not yet. But internally the contrast is starting to hurt. This is the stage where they try to distract themselves with new people, new conversations and new energies. But no matter how many faces they entertain, one silent truth keeps echoing inside. They don't feel like you. They try to move on, or at least pretend to. They get dressed a little sharper. They wear the scent you once said you liked. They go out, laugh harder than usual, and snap pictures mid-laughter to make sure the moment looks effortless. And when they sit across from someone new, someone eager, someone fresh, there's a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, this can replace what they lost. But deep down, something's off. Because the attention is louder, but the connection is quieter. The new person talks more, but says less. Compliments come fast, but land shallow. There's no weight, no anchoring presence, no emotional gravity. And for the first time they feel it, not just what they lost, but what they overlooked when they had it. You see, folks, you didn't perform, you just were. You didn't try to be loud, you were calm. You didn't chase their chaos. You remained grounded in your clarity. That kind of energy can't be replicated by someone who just showed up yesterday with the right haircut and good timing. That new energy might impress them, but it doesn't settle them. They start to notice the subtle differences. The stillness that once made them feel safe now feels absent. You never had to say much to say everything. You didn't need to brag or try or perform. You were just present, fully, quietly, unapologetically. And now, in a world of people who want to be seen, they're starting to miss the one person who was content just being real. That's the part that's haunting them, not your presence, your absence of performance. You didn't flood their notifications. You didn't fight to prove your value. And ironically, that's why you're unforgettable now. They scroll through texts with this new person, and something feels hollow. They read compliments that don't land. They laugh at jokes that feel forced. They smile in moments that don't quite reach their soul. And then they remember. That one time you didn't say a word, but your energy said everything. That moment you listened, not to respond, but to understand. That night when your silence spoke comfort louder than anyone else's words. Now the comparison begins, not because they're trying to compare, but because your presence has become their quiet standard. And it's not about missing the relationship, it's about realizing you weren't like the rest. You didn't need to be right. You didn't need to control. You didn't need to impress. You weren't loud. You were solid. That solidness is what they crave now. But the cruel twist, they didn't realize it until you were no longer there to hold it steady. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." That's your reality now. You're no longer in the room. You're not watching their stories. You're not curious about the rebound. You're not analyzing what's next. You're busy living aligned, building, healing, becoming, quietly, stoically. And that absence, it's louder than any new presence they've found. They try to shake it, try to remind themselves that everyone moves on, that they'll find better, that it's just a phase. But the soul knows the truth. The heart recognizes real when it loses it. They're starting to realize that while they were measuring attention, you were operating from depth. They were looking for sparks. You were building a fire. So now they compare, constantly, subtly, silently. They don't say it out loud, but inside, every moment with someone new is silently checked against the memory of you. And nothing quite measures up. Let me ask you this, my friends. Isn't it something when the very energy they called too quiet becomes the one they miss the most? That's not revenge. That's clarity. That's what happens when you stay true to who you are, and they only realize it when your silence shows them what noise cannot give. If you feel that, if you know you've become the quiet standard someone now longs for, type this in the comments: "My stillness is rare." Let it echo through the space. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you, and stay with me. Because next comes the moment they reach out, not boldly, but with subtle signals, hoping you'll still answer a door that's already been closed. Number 6, the accidental contact. They don't reach out to reconnect. They reach out to see if the door still opens. It always starts small, a harmless text, a random meme, "Hey, do you remember the name of that place we used to go?" You read it once and you know. This isn't about the place. This isn't about the memory. It's a tap on the glass, a whisper through the cracks. They want to know if you'll respond. This is the moment where their curiosity overtakes their pride. When all their pretending, all their posting, all their passive provocations lead to this, a message, but it won't be direct. No. That would mean exposure. That would mean admitting they still care. So instead, they send smoke signals masked as casual check-ins. And if you're not grounded, if you haven't built your peace like a fortress, you might mistake this for reconnection. But my friends, don't be fooled. This isn't closure. This isn't clarity. This is a pulse check. They want to see if you're still emotionally available, if your silence was a test or a truth. They're not ready to rebuild. They're ready to poke, to product, to confirm if you still miss them, even a little. And that's the most dangerous illusion. thinking a soft message means something hard has changed. But you've changed, haven't you? Because the old you would have replied instantly. The old you would have smiled at the notification, heart racing, wondering if this was the start of fixing things. The old you was still living halfway in a door that never stayed open. But this new you breathe, you read it, you see it clearly for what it is, a test of your emotional discipline. It's like someone walking back to a house they abandoned, gently tapping the door, hoping it swings open like before. But they don't knock with intention, they knock with fear, because the longer you stay silent, the more they realize you're not the same version they left. Seneca said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." And in this moment, your silence is an act of courage. Because you're no longer replying for validation. You're no longer feeding a dynamic that kept you emotionally stretched thin. You're not trying to be the bigger person to get the smaller crumbs. You've grown. You've moved from attachment to alignment. And now, they're realizing something terrifying. You're no longer emotionally available by default. You've reclaimed your attention. You've stopped being the person who responds just because it's polite or familiar or nostalgic. You've started responding to truth, to consistency, to reciprocity, not to vague texts wrapped in emotional ambiguity. But let's talk about them for a second. This accidental contact, it's not random. They've thought about it, probably typed and deleted that message 5 times before sending it. Maybe even sent it to a friend first, asking, "Is this too obvious?" And when they hit send, it wasn't casual, it was calculated. They're not looking for a restaurant name, they're looking for reassurance. Reassurance that they still matter. Reassurance that they haven't lost all access to your world. Reassurance that even after all this time, you still care. But your peace now stands guard at every doorway. You don't answer messages, you answer meaning. You don't chase ghosts, you build with the living. You don't trade your stillness for cheap nostalgia. Because here's what you've finally understood. Not everyone who reaches out deserves a return trip into your life. So you pause, you smile, and you let that message sit there, unanswered, unentertained, uninvited, not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's structure. It's saying, this is the level of peace I've built, and I won't crumble it for curiosity. It's saying, if you wanted me, you would have chosen me then. Not now, not halfway, not hesitantly. And if you feel this in your soul, if you've ever seen that name pop up on your screen and didn't even feel the urge to reply, type this in the comments: clarity over contact. Let the world know. Let them know. You're not emotionally available for the past anymore. Stay with me, because what comes next? That's when their silence turns to chaos, when pretending not to care becomes impossible. Number 7, the emotional outburst. Still water runs deep until the silence becomes unbearable and the storm breaks. They tried to play it cool. For weeks, maybe even months, kept their shoulders back, chin up, eyes dry, pretended your silence didn't sting, that your absence didn't shake them. They posted, they smiled, they stayed unbothered. But deep down, the pressure was building. And now, it breaks. It might come out in a late-night text, full of sarcasm, anger, or sudden sweetness that makes no sense. Maybe it's a voicemail with a voice cracking halfway through, saying too much and nothing at all. Or maybe it's a long, dramatic message that begins with, "I just need to say this," and ends with blame, confusion, or regret. But whatever form it takes, one thing is clear. They've hit the wall. This isn't love. This isn't clarity. This is emotional chaos unleashed after too long in denial. They thought they had time, thought you'd fold, thought your silence was a temporary storm, not a permanent season. But now they see you're not coming back, not because you hate them, but because you healed without them. That's what really breaks them, not your absence, but the fact that your peace didn't require their presence. At this point, their calm can't hold anymore. The truth they've been dodging starts clawing at them, that you were the one who actually cared, that you were the one who stayed grounded when they created chaos, that the person they assumed would always be there finally chose themselves over the cycle. So now they reach out, and it's not subtle, it's raw, it's messy. They might lash out, "You never cared. You've changed. How can you be so cold?" Or they might beg in their own way, "I just don't understand what happened. Can we talk like we used to? I didn't think you'd actually disappear like that." But here's the twist, my friends. They're not reaching for truth. They're reaching for control. Because the silence exposed something they never wanted to admit. You weren't dependent on them. You were present out of choice, not need. And now that choice is gone, and they don't know how to fill that void. So they throw emotions at the wall, hoping something sticks, hoping something hooks you. But you don't flinch anymore. Because you've seen this play before. You've felt the weight of their moods, the unpredictability, the emotional seesaw, and you've finally stepped off. You're not here to decode half-truths. You're not here to fix what they broke with indifference. You're not responding, not because you're cruel, but because you're clear. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." And when their outburst comes, you don't do guilt. You don't do shame. You don't do the emotional bait. Because what they're asking for now is not resolution, it's reaction. They want to feel something from you, anything, anger, sadness, regret, because that would mean they still have power. But you've taken your power back, quietly, permanently, with no need for fanfare. You understand now, real strength isn't about who can shout the loudest. It's about who can stay calm in the storm. It's about who can walk away and never look back, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. They're yelling into a space you no longer occupy, and nothing feels more unbearable than realizing your echo won't be answered. Let me ask you, my friends, have you ever watched someone try to provoke a version of you that no longer exists? That's not a loss. That's a confirmation that your silence worked, that your healing happened, that the version of you that once tolerated emotional storms has found shelter. So stay grounded, let them rage, let them cry, let them beg, but do not return to the fire you walked out of. You left for a reason. If you feel this truth in your spirit, if you've ever sat through an emotional outburst and still chosen peace, type this in the comments: "I choose calm." Not to prove a point, but to protect your power. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you, and stay with me, because what comes next? That's when the mask drops completely, and they start longing not for the relationship, but for the version of themselves that only existed when you were there. Number 8, the return of longing. You don't miss the person, you miss the peace they brought to the war inside you. This is the stage where it all slows down. The games stop, the pretending wears off, the noise fades, and all that's left is the ache. Not the dramatic kind you see in movies, not the public confessions or Instagram captions. It's deeper than that. It's the quiet kind of longing, the kind that creeps in when the world goes still, late at night, early in the morning, when no one's watching, When the phone stays silent, that's when you come back to them, but not as a person. They're not thinking about your last text, or your outfit, or what you said in that last fight. No, they're longing for a feeling, that feeling they only had when they were around you. That strange, steady, grounding peace that didn't demand attention, but somehow made everything make sense. It's hitting them now, that you were the calm they didn't know they needed. You were a mirror, and not the flattering kind, but the honest one. The one that didn't distort, the one that reflected who they truly were, even on their worst days. And now that you're gone, they're surrounded by people who laugh louder, post more, praise them faster, but none of them see through them the way you did. None of them center them like you did. And suddenly, they realize they were never really secure. They were just surrounded by your strength. Now they feel the absence in strange ways. That song they skipped over for months, suddenly it feels like a time machine. That place you two went once feels like a shrine. A stranger walks by wearing your cologne, and just for a second, their whole emotional system collapses. That's longing. That's what comes when you realize you lost something that wasn't just nice, it was real. And here's the irony, my friends. They're not obsessed with you. They're obsessed with who they were when you were around. Because in your presence, they were softer, calmer, less chaotic. They didn't have to perform. They didn't have to compete. They didn't feel the need to impress. You gave them space to just be. And now that space is gone, and everything else feels tight, loud, exhausting. They go on dates, they laugh at the right jokes, they dress up for the mirror, but nothing lands. It's all surface, no roots. Because when someone gets used to depth, they can't enjoy shallow waters the same way. And that's what they're drowning in now, a sea of surface-level attention that doesn't feed the soul. But you're not touched by this storm, not anymore, because you didn't detach in bitterness. You detached in truth. You didn't move on to prove something. You moved on because there was nothing left to build with someone who only brought matches, never bricks. You chose self-respect over confusion, peace over performance. And now your energy? It lingers like a fragrance they can't scrub off. Not because you haunt them, but because you healed them without them realizing it. And now that healing is gone, Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one." And you did. You stopped debating. You stopped explaining. You started embodying. You became the example, not the echo. And in doing so, you didn't just disappear. You became a standard. One they didn't recognize until it was too late. Now they feel the weight of that standard. In every awkward conversation, in every overhyped rebound, in every empty compliment, in every laugh that doesn't touch their heart. You're not a memory anymore. You're a measurement. You're not the past. They are. And that's the twist. They're not just missing you. They're missing the version of themselves that only existed around you. The grounded one. The softer one. The one who didn't have to try so hard. And the tragic part, that version might never come back because you were the space that allowed it to breathe. Let me ask you, my friends, have you ever felt someone start to remember you, not with regret, but with reverence? That's not ego. That's the result of living in alignment when others lived in ego. If you feel that truth, if you've become the one they remember when everything else feels fake, type it in the comments. I became the standard. Say it loud, say it clear. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you. And stay with me, because we're not done yet. The final piece is coming, the part where you don't just move on, you transcend. Number 9. the realization they can't replace you. When something rare leaves, it doesn't just create a gap, it redefines what enough even means. This is the final stage, not of healing, but of awakening. When all the games, the posts, the distractions, the rebounds, the performance, the anger, the silence, finally collapse under their own weight. And all that's left is one sharp truth they tried to outrun. You weren't just someone. They thought you were replaceable, but you were one of one. They didn't see it when you were there. Of course not. Your presence was steady. Too steady. It felt permanent, safe, predictable. They thought they had you figured out, that you'd always come back, that your silence was a pause, not a goodbye. But now, sitting in the aftermath of their own emotional illusion, it hits them like a freight train. They didn't just lose you, they lost access to an energy they can't find again. It's not that they haven't looked. Oh, they've looked. They've tried to laugh with someone else the way they laughed with you, tried to feel the same depth with someone new, tried to match the energy, the flow, the safety. But it doesn't land. It doesn't feel the same. And it's not about comparing faces or personalities. It's about something deeper, a presence, a frequency, a grounded energy that calmed their chaos without asking for anything in return. And that's not easy to replicate. You see, while they were chasing noise, you were mastering stillness. While they were collecting attention, you were cultivating depth. While they were trying to get over you, you were getting real with yourself. That difference? It widened, quietly, slowly, irreversibly. They thought time would fade you, that distance would dilute your presence, but instead, it's amplified it. You're not fading, you're crystallizing in their mind. The more surface-level attention they gather, the more they realize it lacks weight. The more conversations they have, the more they miss your silence, your eye contact, your calm, your restraint, your truth. And this is where obsession transforms, not into love, not into desire, but into recognition. You became a mirror they can't find anywhere else. Because when you're a person of depth, clarity, and intention, you don't just walk into someone's life, you shift it. And when you leave, the space doesn't fill with noise. It echoes. Now they're realizing that all those times they downplayed you, shrugged off your love, questioned your loyalty, ignored your consistency, it wasn't because you weren't enough. It's because they weren't ready. And the sick twist is, now that you've evolved, now that you've detached, now that you've leveled up, they finally are, but it's too late. Because now, you're not even reachable in the same way. They could call, you won't answer. They could text, you'll see it, but won't respond. They could cry, scream, beg, but your silence, it isn't stubbornness, it's closure. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And your thoughts now? They're not about revenge, not about proving anything. They're about peace, growth, purpose. You've outgrown the emotional chase. You're not holding grudges. You're holding standards. You don't need them to admit they lost something valuable, because the life you're building without them says it louder than any apology ever could. Let me ask you something, my friends. Have you ever watched someone finally see your worth from a distance they chose, only to realize the bridge is gone? That's not cruelty. That's consequence. You were never trying to make them regret losing you. In conclusion, what begins as silence often ends as transformation. They may not admit it, but your absence rewrote the entire story. Stay grounded, stay aligned. If this resonated with you, like the video, share it with someone who needs this truth, and subscribe for more Stoic Power.